Yeah, I mean, that, like, that's good one.
It's good. It's recording.
It's recording.
Please get seated and we can start our program. Thank you for attending the technologies necessary for the building and safety operations presentation today. I'm David Khurram. I'm the CALBO president this year, and I would like to introduce a team of experts that I have invited to make this presentation. My role is more moderating here. From left, Issam Shahruri, the building official for City of Costa Mesa. Yvonne Balish, the building official for City of Palo Alto. Mark Abbott, building official for Charles Abbott and Associates, and Stacy Reno, product manager for Electronic Plant Software. These people have been involved from early on this year when we formed the committee, and they have made extraordinary contribution in putting this presentation together. It's a very fast-paced presentation, so I would like you guys to silence your phones or any computer or devices that you have, and keep the questions for the end. We just went through one session, the best way for us to make the presentation, and then we address your questions. Jot down your questions and we'd be glad to respond to your questions. Okay. There has been a lot of research and a lot of conversation at the CALBO board as far as how we need to address technologies for building and safety. Beside human resources that we have, which is our first resource, technology is a second resource for the building officials that we use on a daily basis, and we rely on those technologies. Technologies used to be email, fax, telephone, laserfish, archiving, that kind of thing. But nowadays, technologies have all changing on us. They have become more online type, more paperless, and there's more demand on daily basis for us to be business friendly and streamline our operation. And everybody sees that pretty much through a technology. They figure because we have the electronic plan check, we should be doing electronic plan check faster. They figure because we have a more robust archiving system, public should be able to see our archives. There's a lot of demand on us. The regulation changes on us all the time, as you know. So when the code changes, the corrections have an electronic plan check system has to change. When the fees change, the system fees have to change. So there's constant work and upgrading of the systems that we are working on and we're relying on. So based on all this input that we received, the CALBO 2017-2018 goal, number 3, was promote innovation and technologies in building and safety operations. So with this goal, we started the year. June 2017, the CALBO Innovation Committee was established. I quickly made a few calls and we found interested people to join the committee, and the committee was formed. Based on the input received from the committee, we decided to send a survey out to figure out what the cities are doing. The survey went out in July, and the 60 cities responded to the questionnaire. Thanks to those cities that responded to the questionnaire, that determined our approach for the innovation and technology group and what we could accomplish. We realized that various technologies used at building and safeties are not coordinated on the same platform. We identified 8 distinct different technologies that are around us, and we deal with them on a daily basis. Some cities may use 6, 7, some cities may use 9, but generally there are 8 distinct different systems around us that we may be aware or may not be aware, but one way or the other we're working with them. And that will come out in this presentation, identifying these 8 systems. We figured there's a best management required. Somebody needs to start figuring this out, writing down, and that's as a result of that, this presentation came about. So this presentation, we go through the 8 different softwares and systems, and then you hear from the expert the best management practice for each one of these systems. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask Stacy Reno to join us and go through these systems. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. All right, so on the screen there, as Dave mentioned, we have identified these 8 core technologies that really will provide most agencies the tools that they need. We know there are more, but these are really the core ones that we're going to be discussing today. And each of us will take a topic to go through, okay? But let's talk about where we're at. The technology in the brave new world is, some of you folks are running technology that is, let's say, long in the tooth, and some folks maybe are running something that's a new whiz bang, right? But if you've been through a process where you're putting an upgrade in place, how many of you have gone through an upgrade process of anything? Yeah, it can be tough, right? It can be pretty brutal. It's hard on your staff. It takes a lot of time. Sometimes you don't even get what you pay for, right? So this is where we're at. This is the reality that we're living in. Now, fortunately, there are new tools coming out, and what we're going to find today is, in talking through this panel here, is that your biggest bang for your buck is where you can improve efficiency to reduce labor costs, and that often means data entry. How many times do you have to put the same information into one or many systems? And to start eliminating paper as much as we can. The more that we can go to a digital environment, the more everything can be shared, data is shared better, and that's going to improve our turnaround time for projects and reduce our costs. So is anybody here 100% paperless? Awesome, I want to talk to you. Upgrade or die. How long do we stick with our old long in the tube technology before we realize we're not serving our constituents, we're not getting the best benefit for our staff, and we are losing out on technology that's currently available that we can take advantage of, okay? And then finally, user acceptance is a big thing. You could spend piles of money putting a new system in, but if your staff hate it, it's not going to go over well. So onboarding your staff is part of the process of becoming efficient. Training, retraining, user acceptance, okay? All right, so again, if we look at these 8 core technologies, you'll see that in a perfect world, everything is connecting to the permitting system. The permitting system becomes the source of truth for all of your data. The connectivity that is done to provide this, these modules to talk to each other are basically using API technology. It's a text-based language that allows you to share data between systems. When you can share data, you're receiving the best benefit. The technologies that we've outlined in the online product section, online processing or customer portals, online inspection, and plan review are the ones that we've identified to give you the highest efficiency, somewhere in gains of 30 to 50% when you have these technologies in place, okay? All right. So when we focus on these 3 core online products, then the benefit again is to have a connected system that supports what's called bidirectional conversations between products. Data can come in one side, go back out, and then all the systems can stay synced up. So that's the customer portal, the plan review products, and the inspection apps. How many folks are using inspection apps in the field? Okay. Not as many as we like, right? So Mark's going to talk about that a little bit. Bang for your buck. When you're looking at choosing your customer portals or building your own, rolling your own portal, these are the 4 minimum things that you would want to consider in choosing that technology. To be able to take your permitting applications online so that folks don't have to come in. If you're having somebody fill out a PDF form and that comes to you electronically, that's still better than having to drag them into the office. Something that takes payment online, right? Just like if you go to Amazon, buy some socks. Something that you can schedule, something where your folks can schedule inspections online. Again, you're using technology to keep people from coming in personally and to do this on their own time over the internet. And then another big benefit to the portals is one that takes documents in. So a portal that can take in documents for plan review, for inspections, for business licenses, to be able to download documents. Those are the features that you would want to look for in a customer web portal. All right? Plan review. The connectivity between a permitting system and a plan review system is one that can also give you a big bang for your buck when you're talking about integration, where the permitting system still remains the source of truth for the permit application, the processes, the workflows, those configuring in the permitting system ideally, and one that also then can take documents in for plan review from the portal. So you'll see in the diagram where the online processing connects to the permitting system, so the applicant can upload their documents. Documents go to the plan review system, they can go back out to the customer portal. Again, that's going to give you a lot of efficiency because your customers don't have to come in with, you know, a USB drive or a shopping cart full of paper, right? And then Mark's going to go through this a lot more detail, but in a mobile inspection product, certainly one that can support iPads and Android devices, that's easy to use, right? Because we've got guys in the field using their fingers on these devices. In a perfect world, it would be able to access your plan review documents for inspections to get those final approved sets available to them. And one that can do offline syncing or is always on. So those are the considerations that you would need to take care into account when you're looking for an inspection system. And of course, one that will do scheduling. Okay? Now, for folks who are maybe using an older product, sometimes there's a lot of reluctance to go through the upgrade process, especially if you've done it once and it was tough. So when you're talking about upgrading, the question is often with the IT folks, how long can we keep this old system running? At what point do we have to bite the bullet and consider buying something that's going to get us the sort of services that we want to provide to our constituents and provide integration to these new products that are coming out on the market? Now, one of the things that I've seen personally is if there are big plans in place to be spending a lot of time and money and effort to put a new system in, but nobody is supporting that process, there's no advocate on board, then the project may not succeed as well as we would like. So you need to be an advocate for the process. Sometimes I say you have to have somebody with a stick. Okay? Let's get these folks on board. One of the other things that I've learned over time is that people don't like change, right? You guys all know that. And sometimes it's helpful to consider bringing in somebody who can help the process change. If you're moving from a paper environment to an electronic environment, you need to be able to let go of some of the old ways that we've been doing things for 100 years. And bringing in a change expert to not only bring your staff up to speed and get them comfortable, but to get your constituents comfortable as well. Could be very beneficial. California OSHPD did this when they put in Plan Check. And the city of Maricopa, Robert Mathias, he's kind of one of my go-to guys for change management. He's really an expert in making a city go 100% paperless. Okay, so that's the introduction to what we're going to talk about. I'm going to give it over to Isel.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. The next presentation is about permitting systems, and we all know this is the most painful part sometimes of our operations in building departments. It is also a source of a lot of frustration sometimes, and I hope in this presentation I could maybe shed some light in terms of direction to go to, in terms of picking a permitting system, and in terms of living with a permitting system that you're stuck with at this point. So we're going to talk about different hosting options, whether to go with web or Windows-based applications, analyzing the costs and benefits of the permitting system, and whether you should have a technology fee, and some common best practices for your permitting systems. So where should you host your data and your application? Should you host it on your city servers or on the cloud somewhere? There are pluses and minuses to each. One of the pluses to having it in-house is loading speed. Sometimes if you have a good city network, good architecture, well-maintained network, The loading speed of the data can be a lot faster than traveling across the web. Disasters, it could work both ways. You could benefit or be hurt from disasters in terms of your data and where it's hosted. If you have data that is hosted locally and you experience a local disaster, then you could basically, without proper backups, you could be in trouble in terms of accessing your data, which could be crucial in terms of a disaster. If it's off-premise, then that is advantageous, and you could still access it via the cloud. But at the same time, if you have a regional disaster and the lines are cut off for communication, then the local data proves invaluable. Hardware and IT support, if you have the staff that can support your network and they have the expertise on board, then that's great. If you want to reduce the cost of that and delegate it to the vendor, you could do that as well. In terms of the shared environment, if you have it on a city network and you have a dedicated server for it, then that could be basically handle the traffic only to that server. If it's on a vendor website, depending on the architecture, depending on how it's set up, depending on their load balancing, it could go both ways in terms of if their servers are impacted at some point by a number of users, then that could slow you down. Should you go with a Windows or a web-based application? The trend is to go with a web-based applications for many reasons. There's still one advantage to Windows applications in terms of their loading speed and capabilities. But there are advantages also to web applications, mainly in terms of installations. There's nothing to install. You open the web browser and here's your data. There is the operating system compatibility. If you have a Windows application, it won't run on a Mac versus having a browser-based system that can run on all kinds of systems. In terms of updates and maintenance, if you have a system that Windows-based, from time to time you have to apply an update. People sometimes forget to do that. If it is web-based, then it can be automatically pushed through their servers, the vendor servers. Costs and benefits. So how do you determine if you should get that software application or if you should not? Basically, we can calculate that or approximate it as much as possible. One way is to calculate the costs, including the future costs of the application in terms of maintenance fees, etc., and get a present value for those costs. We can also calculate the benefits and get the present value for those benefits. And if the present value of the benefits exceeds the present value of the cost, then there's a benefit in acquiring that software. One way in terms of getting that present value of the benefits, I created a simple spreadsheet in my case. I basically went through the most common tasks done by building department personnel, for example, logging in a plan check. How many times do you log in a plan check? And if you log in a plan check, how long does it normally take you right now on average? With the new system, how long is it going to take you? And that's where you need to find out, and crucial to find out in a new system, what each operation is going to take in terms of time. So the difference between the new time, hopefully it's less time than the old time, represents the amount of minutes that you save. Multiply it, say, by 1,000 times that you do this each year. That tells you the total amount of time that you're going to save. Multiply it by the unit cost of that personnel or staff member. That tells you the saving for that specific item. Now repeat it for 40, 50 different tasks that you do, and sum it up and find the present value of those benefits. And the greatest net present value, the difference between the present value of the benefit and the present value of the cost, basically gives you the highest benefit. In doing so, you need to, of course, watch the execution time. How long does it take to log in a plan check? Does it take 2 minutes? Does it now take 10 minutes? How many steps does it take to log in a plan check, for example? Do you have to click on 7, 8, 9 steps, or is it 1 or 2 steps? Each step that you click takes up time, and that's reflected in your calculations of the benefits. But it's also some things that are not captured, maybe the amount of training that you need. If you bring in a new staff member and you show them how to log in a plan check with 2 steps versus 7 or 8 steps or steps in the menu, then that obviously is going to take more time and more training. So the number of clicks, the number of steps that you take in each application is extremely crucial. It needs to match your own process. Technology fees. If you implement a new permitting system, should you charge a technology fee? And the answer, in my opinion, it depends. It depends on what? Well, if the software basically is essentially a net cost saver for you, improves your efficiency, there is no need to implement a technology fee. You already captured those savings. But at the same time, the software offers additional benefits that you did not offer before, did not exist before, that may make the case for a new technology fee. If you have a permitting system right now, or if you are planning to get one, some common practices that are good in terms of improving the efficiency of your existing system. One of them is to limit the items that are rarely used. For example, when you enter a valuation, oftentimes you go to your valuation list and select from a pick list. You say, I want this valuation, this valuation, this valuation, enter the information. If you have 4 or 5 valuations that you normally do day in and day out, then that should be your pick list. If there are items in the 250 items of valuation from ICC that you practically never use, I mean, how often do you do a type 1 jail? Should you then enter and maintain a type 1 jail in this list and have your staff also maintain the valuation for it every 6 months? That wouldn't make sense. So what would make sense is to limit those items for the most frequently used, and for items that may come up every once in a while, we have the ability to enter them manually. The same thing with fees. Maybe have 2 lists, one for the most common fees and one for less frequently used fees. Permit types too as well. If you are trying to enter a permit type, it starts getting confusing. Where do I categorize this permit? This permit's coming in, should it be in this category or should it be in this permit type? Be as sparse as possible, reduces confusion, and helps basically the staff in quickly and easily enter the information. The same thing with online services. Should you have an online permit for every conceivable permit you can think of, or should you have it for the most commonly used permit applications online? You should limit it to the most commonly used items and not put things out there that needs maintenance, update, etc., and creates additional confusion in terms of the online permits. It's important to keep the database clean. For newer database applications, this is a little easier to do. If you have an existing database application, just make sure that you keep it clean. A lot of times in older database applications, there's that kind of log where somebody could enter text in a date field or enter text in a text field that's not supposed to be there. For example, you could open it up and under status, I used to find all kinds of entries in there like issued, finaled, but then I could find issued with 1 S or issued 2 or not finaled. So it could be, and that is important to keep your database clean. It's important for reporting and for searching as well. You can achieve this consistency through maybe using drop-down lists and providing clear policy to your staff in terms of what to enter for each type of status or each type of entry. A lot of times we want to get data out of our permitting system and we have a hard time doing that. To achieve that, there are report writers. They can come in handy. They allow you to extract and manipulate the data. And that's where the cleanliness of the data is important. To do that, you need to kind of understand your database a little bit, and you look for your software vendor for guidance on your data, different tables and their relations. We're going to talk a little bit about this later on as well. Report writers, there are many report writers. One of the most common one is Crystal Reports, and heavily used by many software vendors. If you want to create a report, sometimes it could be a little difficult, but for simple reports, it is really not that much more difficult than using Excel. So if you feel comfortable using Excel, you probably will do fine using Crystal Reports, at least for simple data, for simple reports. Online permitting systems are the way to go. They're allowing the public to access their information, apply for permits, as well as make requests, do searches. You're empowering the people. At the same time, you are reducing the traffic to City Hall, reducing the reliance on your staff, and reducing your staffing costs as well. And results in overall better customer service, in my opinion. The next segment is about queuing systems. Queuing systems is about managing people coming into the building department or other departments for assistance. There are many ways to have a queuing system. The most simple way of queuing system, people coming in and just visually and mentally keeping track of who came in first and who came in next, right? Another way is to have a sign-in sheet and just cross out the names as people go through the sign-in sheet. Another way is just take a number. And this presentation is about the fourth item, which is basically implementing an application that can manage this wait process and customers at the counter. There are benefits to customers. First, they are acknowledged when they type in. A lot of times they see themselves, they get a ticket, they know their place in line, they see where they are waiting, and it also results in helping them faster as well, having a system like this, which is basically something that the customers appreciate. Benefits to employees in terms of managing the workflow within the queuing system. For example, if somebody comes in, they're being helped by a permit technician, now they need to go up to a planner. Should the permit technician leave their desk, hunt a planner down and have them come in? Or should they press a button where they basically this request is automatically forwarded to a planner and the permit technician can continue doing what they need to do? Benefits to management overall in terms of tracking wait time or tracking the most frequent requests or things that seem to take an extra amount of time to help at the counter. Does the re-roofing permit take a lot more time right now to help at the counter? Why does it? Do we need to have staff training, or do we need to change our process to make it more streamlined? So lots of data that can help us refine our process. At the most basic level, a queuing system application can just take in registration and track wait time. It would be nice to have ability to manage the workflow and basically get customer feedback. If they leave you their information or an email address, you can shoot them an email, sometimes automatically by the system that solicits their feedback and what they think of the service. For hardware, there are queuing systems that require specialized hardware, where you basically somebody comes in, presses a button on what they need, and this is supplied by the vendor. Or it could be done using common hardware and such as common computers and monitors. There's a couple of examples. This is the city of Anaheim. Somebody walks in, they're greeted by somebody behind the counter on the right-hand side, where they check them in, ask them what they want, they check them in, give them a ticket. Their ticket number appears on the screen. They sit down to wait, and then when it's their turn, they basically are called to a specific window to be assisted. Similar setup in Newport Beach. This is an example, just a screenshot of basically what information is entered and tracked by the employee of the customers waiting. In Laguna Beach, it's a little different. On the right-hand side, there is a check-in system where the customer comes in. They sign themselves in. When they sign in, there is a number of check boxes based on what they need. Once they submit their request, their name appears on the big screen in terms of their place in line. And at the same time, their request is routed to an employee based on their availability and schedule. So then this is basically an example of that check-in screen and the wait list. And on the right-hand side, that's what appears to the employee, so that they even takes the picture so that they get a more personal assistance from the employee. They just walk up to them and they greet them and assist them directly. So queuing systems are important because they help us minimize the wait time. That's the most important part for me in the queuing system, is basically minimize the wait time. But how long should the wait time be? Or how short should the wait time be? Is 10-minute wait for issuing permit okay? Is 45 minutes okay? What is right and what is not? And the answer is my favorite answer, which is It depends. It depends on what? It depends on a number of factors. Let's first take a look first on how we can calculate the wait times. In your handouts, you're going to have a link for this site where you can enter the information and project the calculated wait time based on a number of parameters. If you look on the left-hand side, there is, you're assuming that we have one permit technician. They're capable of helping 4 customers per hour on average. And on average, we get 3 customers per hour. The projected wait time based on this is about 45 minutes. Now, if we double the number of customers, we go from, I'm sorry, not customers. If we double the number of employees, it's the same number of customers, we double the number of employees. Now we have, instead of 1 permit technician, we have 2 permit technicians. What will happen to wait time? Is it going to go down by half? It's going to go down by a lot more than half. Now it is reduced to about 2.5 minutes. So the cost of the employees is going up linearly. The benefit to the customer in terms of their wait, or the cost of their wait time, is declining exponentially. So the blue line represents the cost of customers. On the axis, the vertical axis, we have the cost. On the horizontal axis, we have the number of employees. More employees, more cost in a linear way according to the blue line. But also more employees, you have less wait time, which is more benefit to the customers, which is the green curve. Now, add up those 2 costs, and that would be the overall cost to your jurisdiction. Take a blue point on the blue line, a blue point on the green line, sum them up, and that gives you a blue point on the curve, on the red curve. That represents the total cost to the jurisdiction depending on the number of employees. So the sweet spot in here is to minimize your cost, keep it at the lowest cost possible, and there is a specific number of servers or permit technicians in our example that would achieve this cost minimizing service that we can provide. At this point, I'm going to give it back to Stacy for electronic plan review.
All right, so we're going to transition now and talk about plan review. How many of you folks are using electronic plan review? Good number of you. All right. So let's talk a little bit about, again, best practices for key functionality. When you have a plan review product that is self-contained, it doesn't talk to another product, it doesn't talk to your permitting system, it may not talk to your portal. You can gain benefits by using electronic plan review because you're still not moving paper. Moving paper, as you know, is very expensive, right? I've seen trash cans on dollies that are being wheeled around, and that's a very time-consuming, labor-intensive process. So a product that offers connectivity to a permitting system is going to give you ideally better efficiency and reduce your time and costs. A product that provides collaboration is very nice because what we're seeing in some of the older technology, folks are using Adobe, is there's a lot of linear processes where we give a plan review document to this department and they're still working on it and these folks can't start yet. But a product that offers collaboration means that everybody can work on the same document at the same time, improving turnaround time and providing better collaboration and communication among staff members, which is always good. All right. One that provides configurable workflow tools is handy because then you can configure the system by yourself without spending a pile of money to pay up close personal time with a developer, right? So something that you can configure on your own is ideal. Plan review tools need to be easy to learn, and that's because these users, these plan reviewers, some of our seasoned professionals, they've been doing paper for, since time began, and transitioning them to the electronic environment, it can be difficult. So when they have a comfortable product they can easily pick up, that means the training is going to be easier, the adoption is going to be easier, and overall that's going to improve adoption to the new product. A plan review system that also manages document versions properly is very nice because when you properly manage document versions, you can carry your comments and markups forward from the first version to the second version to the third version automatically. And that means the plan reviewers don't have to go open the earlier versions to see what they've done. What they have done is on, in their screen when they open the latest version. So that, again, reduces costs and improves efficiency. One of the things I learned in doing this type of software some years ago is that plan review is not about markups. Plan review is about those comments. Are they properly managed? Are they secure? Do you have an audit trail? Do you know when issues are being resolved? Is there a database recording all of that for you in case you have to pull that up for audit purposes? And finally, believe it or not, a plan review product that supports paper plan review is ideal because it can take years to transition to a 100% paperless environment. So when you can find a product that does both paper and plastic, as I say, then that's a good tool to get folks to use the technology and benefits of the systems. So the next conversation is on-premise or vendor hosted. There's a lot of tools that are currently being run on a desktop install, which means somebody's got to install it, someone's got to maintain it. It's dependent on your operating systems being up to date, firewalls, all of that stuff. So that is certainly out there, but the industry itself is moving to cloud, on-cloud systems as well, whether that's hosted in Amazon or the new Microsoft Azure systems. So the benefit then to having a web-based system is that you can have many plan reviewers working on the same document at the same time, as again, because it's web-based, we can share this information easier. There's no check-in, there's no download, and all of that latency for managing a document on your workstation is pretty much gone. But we can also connect that software to your customer portal. That allows the applicants to upload their documents to the customer portal. They can be delivered through the permitting system or maybe directly to the plan review system, and that will give the best benefit to your applicants where they don't have to come in with the USB drive or send you files on email, which are typically large. So the connectivity between these two systems is using APIs. How many people don't know what an API is? Good, I won't have to go there. All right. So integrated or standalone is another conversation. Is this plan review system by itself running on-premise or in the cloud, or does it talk to the permitting system? So obviously your best bang for your buck is when you can connect these systems together. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a coming up slide. But when you have a higher volume of plan reviews coming in, integration to a permitting system is recommended because it will reduce duplicate data entry. That is one of the issues that folks will have to deal with when they're running standalone, is there might be some duplicate data entry that you have to do for staff, okay? All right. When we're talking about plan review products that are web-based, that means we have to choose a browser. And so I put the screen up on the presentation because it's important to know when you're picking a web-based product out, what browser does it run in? Most software vendors who are writing to the web now will have a preferred browser, and a lot of agencies are running IE11 because that used to be the preferred browser for government, but that is now falling away, as you see. So there's websites out there that you can hit to find out what is the most popular browser this month, and that's something that the software vendors are looking at when they're writing their tools. Okay, so keep that in mind. All right, so how does integration work for a plan review system talking to a permitting system? This is one model that can be followed, and what I call this is the permitting system is the source of truth. They are responsible for getting the project information. They're responsible for getting the documents. They are responsible for creating the plan review assignments, the workflows, and they pass it to the plan review system. Plan review is completed in the plan review system where the comments are created and the markups are created, maybe the correction report's created there, and then those tasks that were passed in from the permitting system can be updated as they complete in real time. So if you have a guy who's working on 5 or 6 documents and maybe you've got a department running 15 or 20 assignments at once, the assignment status in the plan review system can be communicated back to the workflow in the permitting system in real time. So you can really keep track of what things are going on in real time, and that's going to give you good communication and analytics so you know where everything is at, who's finished, who's still working. Okay. One of the other things I wanted to talk about is what is the desired format for the plan review documents. So how many people are doing plan review on PDFs? Just everybody? Is anybody taking CAD? Yeah. I get this question a lot because I do a lot of demos. CAD documents may come in, it may be acceptable by the plan review software that can take this type of a format, but what you're going to find is you're going to get pushback from the architects and engineers who give you those documents. They are intellectual property. They are often copyrighted. And if you send a DWG file in for plan review, and there's an opportunity for somebody to edit it or delete something or add something, then that can be an issue. Okay, so this is why PDF is already the format of choice for long-term retention. It can be secured, it can be encrypted, and just so you know, okay? All right. So one of the things that I wanted to show you was a case study that we have got from California OSHPD. This is a scatter chart that they gave us to show how much their costs were when they were doing paper plan reviews. And you can see that their break-even point was pretty high at $467,000. And a lot is falling outside that break-even point on paper plan reviews. When they put in an electronic plan review system, their costs were dropped significantly. So this is the, a great demonstration or analytic of how this technology can really make a big difference. Electronic plan review is going to can save significant amount of time and money when you consider everything that it entails. Getting the documents in, moving the documents around, delivering the documents, getting new versions, paper, printing, all of that stuff. So it's kind of a big picture conversation. Okay, I'm going to turn over to Mark.
Good morning. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about online inspection systems and the best practices of those systems out there, how to use them, what to look for them, how to shop for them, and then at the end give you a few ideas if you're not quite there yet, how to a few apps to use that every inspector should have in their toolbox. So how many? Let's see. So how many of you still use these? And why do we still use these? Well, because they don't require batteries. They say that they don't require batteries. The training is easy. They don't require skinny fingers to touch skinny boxes and type. So, so those are the benefits. So those are the benefits of still using this. Is they're cheap. They're easy. But the downsides of these can be lost. They can be misplaced. The handwriting of inspector can be pretty terrible sometimes and can't be read. And so you're oftentimes fielding phone calls asking for interpretation of what the writing actually said. A true story is one of my first mentors and building official at the time, around 2010, 2011, thought he was pretty clever and brought in this to the city hall when iPads were first coming out. And I wouldn't recommend. This is mobile and this is a device, but it's not really a mobile device, so I wouldn't recommend it. But how many of you still use these to do a full inspection, complete inspection? How many use these? Great. How many use these for accessing like electronic plans as well? Nobody? Okay. We had a few in the last session, but these came out the iPads came out in 2010. Surfaces came out around 2012. Android devices, hit and miss in there. We're still a bit too slow to adopt these, but the form factor of these is improved, the cost, the speed. I mean, we really should start looking at adopting these and using these for our full inspection experience out in the field to improve our inspection experience. And in 2013, a company did a white paper a study on the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and their move from paper processes for mobile to iPad, fully inspection services, mobile inspection. They found that the white paper showed that they realized a 30 to 50% improvement in efficiency, and even a 3 to 5 time improvement in a number of trips and things like that. And so the efficiency is there, and you can realize that by maybe your department doesn't have the budget or maybe the resources to hire maybe you require a half inspector. Maybe your workload would be a half inspector. You can use these to realize that efficiency to maybe reduce that, or maybe during the recession when cities looking to cut, we can realize that efficiency by keeping our staff lean and adopt these. So, but what is this really about? What are these really about? And of course, everything is real time. Everything is now. Everything I want it now. Everything is about customer service and perception. And so using these is really about the improvement of customer service and your department's improvement toward that. You can realize these types of efficiencies in the number of calls that come into your city, the number of inspection requests that come into your city, the number of times that somebody loses a correction notice, the number of times somebody wonders if the inspector was there, or is the contractor's too lazy to go check the job card to actually find out if you were there. All those things can be realized in the efficiencies by using a mobile device out in the field. So if you need some more convincing of what these actually can improve, let me give you a few of the benefits of using these. And some of these are obvious, some of these are not. But you can of course access electronic plans out in the field. I don't know how many times you've been out in the field and you find the plans and they're a copy of the original. They're not the actual original, or the last page of the plan has been ripped off because it's been used so many times, or the plans aren't even there. And so then if the plans aren't there, you have to take another trip, and that's just a cost as well. You could, if you have a mobile device, you can of course work on the workflow to access the electronic plan version of that document, and that will reduce your trips out there. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. Of course, taking an enormous amount of pictures. Storing pictures is cheap these days. How many pictures do we have on our phones, on our tablets? And emailing correction notices. I mean, a contractor can realize efficiency on their end by immediately having the correction notice and forwarding it out to other contractors who might be on that correction notice. Of course, you'd have access to previous inspections. You could schedule inspections instantly, or reschedule inspection instantly, so that would reduce calls in. I recently had my pest control vendor come over, and I got a text message that he was on his way, and that was a great convenience, a nice customer service spot. Driving directions, of course, we probably use our phones in these for driving directions. That's pretty standard, an obvious benefit. GPS coordinates can be pulled off of these devices now. So if you're wanting to track your inspectors, we don't do that, but if you want to go Big Brother, you can do that and record that, or make sure that the inspectors are going to those places. Make sure that they're actually helped. The customer said, "Hey, the inspector never showed up," and your inspector said, "Of course I showed up and did the inspection." So you have that. These devices have those capabilities now, and one of the biggest benefits I find is the quality control, quality assurance of what your inspectors are writing. Think of this, that your inspectors are writing corrections and you have no idea what they're writing, and you don't actually find out what they're writing until the customer comes in and shows you the correction notice and how poorly it was written. One, maybe it was poorly written because the handwriting is bad, or two, maybe it's so poorly written that it's very confrontational. So with these devices, you can see what they're typing at real time or in a sync version, and you can help that inspector if they're a promising inspector. Help them improve their writing, help them improve their grammar, help them improve how to spin a correction so it's not so confrontational. And so the QA/QC on your part can be really made more efficient by being able to check what they're writing and not have to dig through permits and permit files and file cabinets, and actually going through and finding the correction notice that they're writing. So maybe what to look for if you go down that road and go shopping for one of these these online inspection systems. You really want to focus on the user experience and user interface. The user interface is how well does it look? How clean is it? Is it uncluttered? Does it work well? Does it take a lot of training? The user experience is, does the inspector fight with using it? Are the fields designed correctly? Are they tall enough for my fat finger? Are the buttons logical color so you know what a submit button is versus a cancel button? So the user experiences, and user interface are really important. There'll be a slide later, but you'll really want to kick the tires on one of these systems if you go down that road of looking at these. The other big item on these is sync versus Wi-Fi or LTE. If anybody's like here on AT&T, my 18, the phone, my phone is barely getting any covered self reception right now. So if you're on Wi-Fi, are you writing corrections that's live on the database? Or if you're not, if you can't get onto a database in a tilt-up building like this, how do you write a correction, or how do you communicate directly with your permit system or mobile app? The other option is to sync. When you're in the office, you suck down your run sheet for the day, you go out and do the inspections, and then when you're back in the office, it syncs back. And those are the two types of systems that you want to consider. There are benefits and pluses and minuses to both, and you'll want to weigh those and what's best in your city. Maybe your city has great LTE service around. Maybe your city has free Wi-Fi around. It's however, weigh those when you go. And what will your IT department let you get away with? What's the main device being used in your city? Windows, iOS, Android? Oftentimes we don't have that choice, and so that choice is made for us. And make sure the app that you get works with one of those, works within the IT's parameters. Is the app you're going to use a native app, or is it a website? You'll notice we all use apps, and you'll be able to tell. You should be able to tell what is the difference between a website that's actually in an app and an actual app. An actual app has built with design standards. Google and Apple have written hundreds of pages and documentations of design standards for how apps are designed. You don't need to know those, but you can realize what's a taller field, what's a wider field. Will you be able to look up at a shear wall that's 6 and 12 nailing, and then look down and focus on a small field that's to write a correction for that's supposed to be 3 and 12? Those types of issues. Make sure it's designed properly. Make sure it looks like a good app. We have enough experience using apps that we can do that these days on our own. And again, demo, kick the tires. Don't use it, don't get it without getting a demo of it. And if you're not quite ready to move to a mobile solution yet, maybe you should start encouraging your inspectors. Maybe you already do. Have a toolbox of apps already on your phone or on your device that would help in the field, would benefit your inspections field, make them more efficient. And these are these are a few apps. There's hundreds of thousands of apps. The app business is a $1 billion industry now. It's $1.4 billion industry now. And so these are just a couple categories. There's some product apps here, as well as some a language translation app. You should never have somebody say, well, they didn't speak the language. Well, you have that at the palm of your hand to type what you want and have it speak what you want. There also, I put the Apple Compass app that has for slopes and whatnot. The compass, if you swipe to one side, it has a level, and a little 8-inch iPhone can't replace a 6-foot smart level. But yeah, if you're in a pinch and need a slope, you should be able to get that. So these are just an intermediary between the paper process as well as going to mobile. And I'll turn it back over to Esau.
So my next segment is about database management systems and archiving systems. Can somebody think of an example of a database management system? A permitting system is an example of a database management system. Database management systems are not really new. I mean, they practically existed throughout history, even prehistoric times. It's just a matter of organizing data in a structured way. The innovation that we have nowadays, of course, is computers and being able to manage this data a lot more efficiently. At the core of a database application is basically the relation between tables. This is important because it sets the tone for understanding the database and also sets the tone for the application itself of how it's going to run overall. An example relation, for example, is what is called a parent-child relation. So you have a parent table, such as parcels, for example, and it has a subtable, such as permits, whereas one parcel would have multiple permits. So that's an example of a relation in a database. Some basic understanding of databases is enough to get you a long way in terms of being able to build an application. I'm not talking about programming. You don't have to program anything. You don't have to build a full-blown application, but you could have side applications, certain applications to manage certain tasks that you need in addition to your permitting application or even to replace your permitting application. Many of those applications, I mean, you could Google it. I Googled it, and those are few that I listed. Some of them I've tried myself. And there is also an API for many of those applications where it allows you to basically interface those applications with others or your permitting application as well. So what is an API and what does it look like? An API is basically a command that you send in order to retrieve data that is in a common format. For example, this is an example API, and the URL contains something like the permit number, the date, the employee number, and sends you back data that is common to just about every programming language. This is called XML. There's JSON format as well. So this gets read by the other permitting applications or other applications where the information could be shared back and forth. And it's not just limited to reading information, but could be to writing or updating information. Over the years, I've used a multitude of applications, and I've just noticed a number of myths out there in terms of applications. Applications tend to be somewhat expensive. Do they really need to be this expensive? In my opinion, if an application has a big user base, it will basically have a smaller unit cost, and with a smaller unit cost, it should be more affordable. The way applications are built as well, a lot of times, my observation over the years that maybe a software vendor may take information about the common aspects of what is needed by a building department and tries to come up with an application that will accommodate all those requests. But at the end, what happens is that we end up with an application that is okay for most people, but is really not perfect for any. And the key thing is in here is to come up with an application that is flexible enough to accommodate all those different requests. Archiving is also another form of database management in which you basically manage documents. We all have tons of documents that we scan, and by scanning them, we basically reduce the storage space that we're always so short on, and allowing the public also to access those documents in a provisioned way online. In doing so, we scan the documents. We do have to go through a verification process that those are the correct documents, and just package them, store them, and even destroy them at some point. There is the tendency that I noticed that people spend a whole lot of time and money scanning those documents, and at the end they keep their paper and still refer to their paper, and they haven't really benefited from this archiving process. It is important at some point to cut the cord and just go as paperless as possible, and to basically, if you remove the papers and you create this atmosphere, the paper documents, and create this atmosphere for people to use them electronically, you're going to find yourself heading in that direction. Then for my presentation, next Ivan is going to go over websites.
All right, thank you, Isam. Good morning. So I'm going to just touch over a little bit about websites and best practices, and then I'm going to give an example of a mobile inspection app. Okay, so the website for building and safety is the key to the gateway of all your services. You should have links to your permitting system, your e-plan check, cashiering, and apps. So one thing to keep in mind for the building and safety websites, the building official should be in charge of providing the input and designing these websites, not your IT department. So it's very important that you maintain that control. And then the other thing that I also want to talk about is to find best practices for websites. You can Google good government websites, and you'll pull up examples of good websites that can be designed. Okay. So some of the best practices you can do for your website, you can put more pictures or pictograms and less text. Put web links on your website. It's more user-friendly. Use the 3-click rule, where if you're showcasing services, no more than 3 clicks to find that service or find that form. Once you get beyond the 3 clicks, you kind of lose the attention of your user. Also, F pattern rule is should be commonly used. So the most important information on your website you put on the left-hand column, and then the next important you put on the upper, and then after that you put it in the center. So use that rule of thumb for designing your websites. So for example, for a building and safety development center, what's the most important thing? Permits, right? So you want your information about finding permits on your left-hand column. Okay. And then you also want to prioritize your website so that the services that get the most hits, you want to put those in the important areas. Okay. All right, so next I'm going to talk about a city inspection app. This is a user interface app. So the City of Palo Alto launched a Palo Alto, what we call an iRequest mobile inspection app about 2 years ago using the CityGov app. And what the goal of this was to reduce the number of phone calls that we get for scheduling inspections. It allows the contractor or homeowner to able to schedule inspections anywhere, so they don't have to be on a computer, they don't have to be by phone. It'll reduce the number of visits to the development center. We also put in some security measures. Initially, when we launched the app, you could just put in the address and it would show you the history of all the building permits. So now people had questions about this, and well, you know, what if my neighbor schedules an inspection for me? I don't want that. So what we've done is we put some security measures in. You have to know the permit number and then the street number of the address, or be a licensed contractor, and then you put in your license number and then the license number that's associated with that permit. You can look up the information. So once you enter that information, oh, and also this app is available for free. You can download it on your iPhone and or Android. So once you put the information in on the initial screen, it'll come up with an inspection history of your, or a permit history of that address or permit number or under that license number. I also had a newer slide that showed a picture of the history. So once you get to the permit history, or I guess the list of active permits, you have 2 options. You can hit history, and then it brings up the history of the inspection codes. And so from there, so you can bring up the inspection, and in the inspection history, which unfortunately I don't have a picture of, it will show you the different inspections that were scheduled for that permit. And in that inspection history, you can see which inspections were scheduled, what the status was it approved, was it not approved, was it scheduled, or was it canceled, or was it a partial approval. And then also in that inspection history, it'll give you the name of the inspector that did that inspection, so you can see, oh, well, you know, Robert did that inspection, or Joe did that inspection. And then it'll also give you the date also of that inspection. So contractors can use it to see if, you know, see that the results of their inspections were approved or not approved, and homeowners can check the inspection history to make sure that their contractor really did schedule an inspection and it was completed. Okay, and then the other feature that you can do on the mobile inspection app is, this is a customer interfacing mobile app, is you can schedule an inspection. So on the active permit screen, you can select schedule an inspection. So once you hit that, you'll get a screen and it'll pull up a list of inspections that you can schedule. And so you can schedule multiple inspections on this app that are related, or you can just choose one. And we also put limitations on this, on what kind of inspections that you can request. So say, for example, you can't schedule a final inspection because you still need to call in and someone still has to check to make sure that all the prerequisite inspections for the final inspection were completed and passed, and also that all the revisions that are related to that permit were picked up and paid for. So we want to make sure that the site is and the contractor is ready for the final inspection. Also, we've also put limitations on the number of inspections that can be scheduled on a daily basis. So you can set that number based on number of inspectors that you have in the field that are available. So once you choose the type of inspection you want, say for example in this case the structural investigation, and you hit next, it'll bring up a calendar, and then on that calendar you can see the next available date you can schedule your inspection, or if you want to schedule out a couple of days, you can also select that. And then once you select a date, then it brings up a preference. Do you prefer morning or afternoon? And you can check morning or afternoon. But bear in mind, this is just a preferred time. It doesn't mean that you'll be guaranteed a morning inspection if that's what you choose, or an afternoon. Okay. And so then once you select your preferred time, then you enter your contact information. You put in your name, phone number, email address, and any comments like meet me in the side yard or something like that. And then you hit submit, and then the mobile app on your phone will say inspection scheduled. And the way to confirm that is that you go back to your permit history, and then you can check to see that inspection shows up in the inspection history as scheduled. So that's the way you can confirm your inspection was scheduled. Okay. And next I'm going to just sort of talk about a little bit of social media and the building department. Okay. So social media can be used for building officials to search or advertise educational classes, training, job openings, community events, such as Building Safety Week, or to showcase even construction milestones that have been reached in the department. Also, it's not on here, but it was on a later slide. LinkedIn is actually a popular social media site that can be used for more professional society. So some of the suggested groups that you can follow on LinkedIn for building and safety would be like the International Code Council, Region 1 ICC, or APMA. So one of the things that I want to go over is an example about how you need to monitor your information, your agency's profile on social media. So social media can be used by individuals in the community to find and locate businesses and rate them. And some of those services are public services, such as building departments and government agencies. So I don't know how many of you have gone on to gone in and checked your social media profile. But say, for example, go on to do a Google search of your building department and take a look at what the search results are and see if your organization has a Yelp page, and open it and just read your profile and read your public reviews. And so one of the things that you'll find on the Yelp page is that users can rate businesses and services. They give them so many stars. They also can write a review. One of the things that we've noticed that some of the public agencies and businesses have Yelp pages without even creating one. And these pages are listed as unclaimed. And so at the very top, right underneath the banner and right next to City Development Center, as an example, it says unclaimed. So if you ever see unclaimed, it means that the business or the agency didn't create that website, and so no one's monitoring this website. So one of the Yelp uses an automated software to upload reviews, and so they don't monitor the reviews. It's up to the business who monitors this Yelp page to check their reviews. So the other thing to note that the Yelp ratings and reviews, the user reviews, should be objective. And Yelp does have content guidelines for these user ratings and reviews. So inappropriate content, derogatory language, discriminatory remarks should be reported for removal. And we can go over, and I can sort of go over how to make these changes. But Businesses that are unclaimed need to claim their unclaimed websites, and the way to do that is you just have to submit a valid email address to claim your website. Oops, okay, that's right. So the way to find the content guidelines is at the bottom of the Yelp page. You'll see an About link, and you click the About link, and then you click About Yelp, and then you click Content Guidelines. And the content guidelines will come up with a page, and in this general guideline, it'll give you guidelines on inappropriate content, conflicts of interest, relevancy, privacy, intellectual property, also demands for payment. So you want to read through these general guidelines and see if any of the reviews fall outside of this guideline. And if they do, you can report them to Yelp to have them to be removed. So the way you do that is, once again, you go back to the bottom of the page, of that Yelp page, and you click the link for About Us and About Yelp, and then Contact Yelp. And then from there, it gives you a list of choices, and you'll click Report Questionable Content Instructions, and it'll bring up a whole page of instructions on how to report a review. So once you come up with this page, you go back to your Yelp page. You have to claim it first, and then you can go back to that Yelp page, and then you can click on Report This Review. It will go back to the Yelp developers. They will review your request and then email the agency or the business with their decision in several days of whether or not they feel that it's inappropriate and can be removed. So it's just FYI, just beware, this can be detrimental to your business and or agency. So just, be aware that you should be looking at your user reviews. And now I'm going to pass it on to David.
So hopefully we still keep you awake and you still have time to listen to the last system that we used. So far you have heard 7 systems that from the expert. This is the last one. This is your finances and cashiering. We won't stay in business as a billing official or a billing department if we don't collect fees. So cashiering money is a big deal, obviously. But the way it works is a developer has a project, you have to do fee estimate first. The fee estimate is always not the 100% right because the details of the project is not finalized. So you give some kind of fee estimates, you collect some money at the beginning through some system, and then it comes to the end when you have to charge the final plan check fee or charge for final inspection fee. So whatever system you use for estimating, it could be an Excel sheet or whatever you do, may not be 100% tied to your permit system. Well, some cities may have done it. Maybe the permit system may be able to do the estimating and eventual final fees. But when the final fees are collected, you normally need a regular cashier system, a system to collect the money, collect the check, receive money online, send the invoice, send the receipt, that kind of system. The research that we did, different cities, they use a different system. Some they have one point of cashiering, one point of receiving money. Some cities have several different points of cashiering and several different cashiers or permit techs may be collecting money, several permit techs. In order to streamline, in order to come up with the best practices regarding your cashiering, collection of money and finances, if you can centralize that, that would help in bookkeeping at the end of the day. That would help in training staff so you don't have to worry about where the mistake happened, where a check was received in a wrong place or check was written wrong rather than $1,000, it was written for $100, that kind of thing. And then you also have that bookkeeping at the end, some checks, bounces, and all that stuff that happens after the fact that our staff, we hear about that as a billing official. And we may have to stop a job. We all experience that. But the purpose of this presentation or this, the best practices to avoid all those complications is go with the universal cashiering system, a system that is centralized and works with your permitting system. It's not a complete separate system. So input provided or put as far as the fees into your permit system communicates with your finance system or financial system, and then centralized collection. So it's easier to address all that at the back end. So basically, centralization of the permit system, process payments electronically, that's another thing. Some cities, they're still not doing that, but if you can collect electronically, we all go to banks and use teller machines nowadays. We don't write checks anymore, we don't deposit cash like that, so the clientele or customers are all familiar with that, they're all asking for that. This sort of wraps up the presentation of the 8 different disciplines. But to summarize, we're going to have time, we're going to leave enough time for some questions and answers, but I'd like to summarize what was said here for the group. We focus on identifying the systems, the 8 systems that we all use. Give and take, some cities may be using less or more, but be aware that it's not 1 or 2. Another thing that we determined that most of cities, in as sophisticated as Palo Alto might be, or some other agencies may be, these systems, they're not 100% communicating with each other. They're not linked, and they're not in one platform. Now look what happens California-wise. There are, give and take, 450 agencies or cities. Each one of them is dealing with 8 systems. These 8 systems are not talking to each other as good as they should be because they're on various platforms, various systems. We are trying to, through the APs, connect them with each other. So this creates a nightmare for billing officials, consultants, vendors who are doing this, because there has not been enough time for billing official groups, for this kind of forums, to establish a platform that we can all write on. And let me give you an example. Microsoft did it to our industry. Now Excel, Word, PowerPoint, they're all running on one platform. You know how easy it is for all of us to work with it? 20 years ago, that was not the case. Google did the same thing. Google came up with a system that now we're all familiar with. It's a platform. Maybe it's a time for the government softwares. Remember, there are 500 agencies in 400 something in California, and nationwide, it's a big market. It's not just a small market. For some bigger software companies to establish those platforms, the platforms that are sort of vetted out through committees and groups like this, and I would say California is probably a very good start because we are more advanced than other part of the country on this topic. There is an interest on billing officials to simplify this on our side. And I'm sure there's interest on the vendor side too, because they have to go battle, they have to figure out all the cities, the intricacy, the way they operate. And I'm obviously talking an ideal world, but it happened to the industry with Microsoft and Google. I can see years to come that government software venture that way. And also, companies are doing it anyways. Bigger outfits are buying the smaller companies in order to establish that platform. We can't deny that. So the business will dictate that to us anyways. But one thing for a fact, to summarize, is our systems are not integrated. Some cities are more progressive, but can I see a raise of hand here to see one city that has got all this coordinated? See, we are not there yet. When Stacy asked question, how many you guys are on electronic plan check, 50% raise the fingers, raise hand. When Mark asked how many are you guys on mobile apps for inspection, again, 50 to 60% raise fingers. But if I ask you how many of you guys are coordinated, nobody raised fingers. So that should highlight something for the group. We clearly talked about off-premise cloud-based system. Google's and softwares and Microsoft, the worlds are going that way. our systems are, I'm hearing on the floor that our bigger outfits are also recommending those systems. Now look what happens to us. If our systems are not coordinated and going on the cloud, it's another leap. We need to fill this gap. We need to bring this together. So if we go on the cloud, we don't have nightmare in our hands. The idea is great, but how to get there? Portals is another issue. Portals are gateway to our public informations, but I can guarantee you a robust portal, not too many people, not too many agencies have it. Some more progressive cities, they may have it, especially by the Silicon Valley, this area. But there is tremendous push, tremendous request from our city management, make the data available, make this public readily accessible, access your archives and all that kind of stuff. We're still debating in some agencies to put things on the cloud or no, versus I'm hearing from Palo Alto that they're going on the cloud with their information. There is a lot of room to discuss all these things, put the best practices forward, so someday we all go on the cloud, but sort of orchestrated. GIS-based systems are very important. They're coming around. A lot of cities are utilizing them, and it's a way for future. And last and final, what Mark Abbott wrote and Isam talked about, and Yvonne even talked about, is apps. The next generation is working on apps. Things have to be very apps friendly. And there are a lot of apps that I don't know how many of you use, but they could be just a training on apps that are valid for building department staff to use. So we know we're using 5 apps or 15 apps or 12 apps, whatever. I'd like to wrap up with making this statement that now for first time, I want to thank the committee, and I'd like a round of applause for the committee that made all this happen. These 4 are from a group of 10 that were able to, or wanted to come to this level, all on their own time. One more thing, all their presentations were prepared on go-to-apps meetings. We never had a physical time to meet, but they were all by go-to-meet type on conference calling. So fully through a lot of technology. We didn't have to drive to each other's offices, and that's the way for future. With that, I'd like to open it to the group for any questions that you have. Please.
The Palo Alto app, how was that developed and who did you use for that?
So we made a customized app. We worked with the city gov app.
Yvonne, you want to give them?
Oh,
It's SmartGov or CityGov?
CityGov. Yeah, we use the CityGov app, and we worked with the consultant from the CityGov app, and then they access our permitting system database to come up with the app.
Who is the consultant?
What's his name? Hasid? George knows. Yeah.
CityGov maps.
Yeah, so that's George Hoyt speaking. That's the chief building official for Palo Alto. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we also use our TruePoint consultant for our permitting software. Okay. Thank you.
So follow-up question for you.
okay.
In your app, can you allow to select article inspection?
Yes, so multiple related inspections, so they have to be related.
How expensive is the system?
That's a good question. George, do you know the answer?
Numbers only, please.
It depends. It's really just a few $1,000s to keep it maintained through the year. And it depends on how often they have to maintain it. But as things progress and, Apple releases or Google releases a new version of it, and something breaks or something Excel breaks. So something's always breaking that they're very good to work with to get those issues resolved. I would say when you're utilizing apps like that, like the inspection app or the inspection request app, the more feedback you get from people, the users that are using it, they're having a problem. You got to know what that problem is so you can get it tackled immediately. So communication is key in keeping things up and running.
so many systems out there too, picking the right one. Of course, it's all cost, hey.
More surveys. Yeah, we need more surveys. Take that? Well, I would like to say, one of the things that we started this whole journey on was because we sent out a survey and we got 60 respondents out of the state. So going forward, look for another survey and give us your input because that helps the conversation, right, for everybody.
Has anyone thought about in various locations joining forces so it's not just one city, one system, but multiple
That's Dave.
jurisdictions coming up with that way they can pool resources?
Extremely good point. This year, we noticed some trends. If you come to Southern California, there are cities like Beverly Hills, Santa Monica, and West Hollywood. They're trying to create a pack to learn from each other. The city of Anaheim and Long Beach, there is a pack being produced because of the building officials and language problems that we have, or similarity of our systems. Absolutely, there is. I'm not sure about up north, but there is a need for these packs. These groups get together, and as you know, it has to do with size of your operation. One solution doesn't fit all, so there is a need for that to come. And the goal is to highlight it in meetings like this. There is a CALBO committee, as you know, is formed for that purpose. So if you have an interest, join the committee, and the goal is to develop those expertise or areas of, I refer to them maybe as a pack. I think I answer your question? Yeah. One last statement before we leave this room, and yeah, there's a question there.
I'm David Lopez, I'm from the city of Berkeley. So we're fully electronic, around scientific inspection and everything. One of the things that I was hoping for today's presentation was to actually talk about some of the pain points that cities are having going that route. I know the presentation was very informative and generic, but there's some major pain points that us, not only us, but other cities that are fully electronic.
Let me address that. Extremely good point. The reason you talk that way, in my opinion, is because you are there. You're running in front of everybody else. This presentation may not have been as generic for me, let's put it, or for any average, but there are cities like Santa Monica of the world, or Berkeley of the world, that everything is automated. In my opinion, next year this time, we'll present those. Some of these cities that are at that level, they need to be in front of the pack and identify. I'm glad I was not aware that Berkeley is fully automated now. Santa Monica, when it comes to electronic plan check, they don't accept any paper anymore. That's a long leap to get there. And I'm aware of some of this. We're all familiar about that. But we didn't feel like it was at the first presentation, first time around, to put it at that level. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. It's just maybe next time, what are the main pain points that the cities have? One of them we find is it's nice to have all these services, but you better have 24/7 customer support. And if you have 24/7 customer support, you're working with, you might be a high level, technology-wise in your department. You have citizens that don't even have an email. And how do you deal with that?
This program, by the way, is being taped, so I'm going to reiterate what you said for the purpose of the videotaping. So Berkeley is presenting that you need to have 24-hour customer service if you go full-fledged with electronic plan check and inspection service. And thank you very much. That's very great input. As a building official, we go through ICC, CALBO, we sit in the classes, we get trained for our codes. But anything to do with technology, there is not much training. We need to pick it up on our own based on how savvy we are with softwares and technology. So this is an effort towards bringing that kind of training to CALBO and to our membership. Thank you for attending. Great job. Thank you very much.
Hey, guys.
Awesome job.
Thank you.